I want to tell you a story about two guys. Let's call them John and Michael. Now, they both graduated from the same law school way back in 1958. They even started their first jobs with the exact same salary. But from that day forward, their financial lives went in, well, wildly different directions. One ended up wealthy, and the other completely broke. Today, we're going to break down these 7 simple rules that made all the difference. $12 million. After 40 years of work, that's the number that separated them. That was the staggering gap between John's fortune and Michael's reality. I mean, how was that even possible?
And what's so crazy is just how identical their starting points were. I mean, look at this. Both pulling in $400 a month in 1958. Yet, 4 decades later, John's a multimillionaire enjoying retirement. Michael, on the other hand, passed away still having to work with less than 50 grand to his name. This isn't a story about luck. It's about the rules they chose to live by. So let's get into the first one.
Okay, here it is. Rule number 1. It sounds so simple, but believe me, almost everyone gets this wrong. This is the bedrock habit. It's the one that separates the people who build wealth from, well, everyone else. It's got nothing to do with how much you make and everything to do with what you do with that very first dollar that comes in. And this right here, this is where you can see the two paths diverge. Right from the very first paycheck. John gets his $400, and before he pays rent, before he buys groceries, before anything else, boom, he saves $100, 25%. He paid himself. Michael? He spent his entire check and then some, using credit. He paid everyone else first. See, it wasn't about the $100, it was about the habit that was cemented for the next 40 years.
And you just gotta look at how this one simple habit snowballs over time. John's little habit of saving $100 a month at a modest 8% interest grew into nearly $350,000. Michael's habit? Well, it cost him over 87 grand in interest payments alone. That's money that just vanished into thin air. One guy built an army of dollars that worked for him. The other spent his life working to pay off an army of debt.
So you've paid yourself first? Great. Now what? What do you actually do with that money? And that brings us to rule number 2, which is where the real wealth generation engine kicks into high gear. This is all about making your money work for you instead of buying stuff that constantly works against you. You know, this might be the simplest but most powerful financial definition you will ever hear. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out. That's it. That's the whole game. The problem is, most people spend their entire lives accumulating liabilities that they think are assets. Just look at this. It's a perfect example. At age 28, John buys a duplex. He lives in one side, and the rent from the other side pays his entire mortgage. Michael? He buys a boat. So let's fast forward 30 years. John's asset is now worth 400 grand, and it's paying him over $21,000 a year in cash. Michael's liability is basically worthless, and it costs him almost 10 grand a year in upkeep. You see the difference? John's asset fed him. Michael's liability ate him alive. All right, rule 3 is about playing defense. Building wealth is one thing, keeping it is a whole different ballgame. And this is what separates the amateurs from the pros. The goal isn't just to make big gains, it's to never, ever take a big loss in the first place. And let me break this down for you because the math here is it's brutal. Let's say you have $100 and you lose 50%. You're down to $50. Now, to get back to your original 100, you don't need a 50% gain. You need a 100% gain. Getting back to even is twice as hard as avoiding the loss. John understood this. Michael was always chasing hot tips and big returns, and he got wiped out multiple times. Rule number 4. This one is about your foundation, your home. It's not an ATM. It's not a piggy bank. It's your family's shelter. It's your place of security. The second you start treating it like some kind of speculative investment, you put literally everything on the line. And their stories couldn't be more different here. John's whole focus was paying off his home as fast as possible. By the time he was 50, he was completely debt-free, secure. Michael, though, he was constantly refinancing, pulling cash out to buy cars and boats. So what happened when the 2008 crisis hit? He lost his home. John had peace of mind. Michael had a foreclosure notice. Okay, this next one, rule 5. It might make you scratch your head a bit, but stick with me because it's one of the single most financially impactful decisions you can ever make. See, the biggest levers in your financial life often have nothing to do with stocks or bonds. And this is just a hard truth. A divorce can be absolutely catastrophic to your finances. It's not just about splitting your assets in half. It splits your future earning potential, and it drains your resources through legal fees and starting over. John and his wife, they were a team, building their wealth together for over 50 years. Michael had 2 divorces, and each one reset his financial progress right back to zero. On to Rule 6. This one's about the ultimate asset, the one nobody can ever take from you, your own mind. The knowledge you accumulate, it compounds just like money. And you know what? The return on that investment is infinite. So what does this number mean? 6,240? That's the number of hours John spent learning. Every single Saturday morning for 40 years, he'd spend 3 hours at the library reading about economics, history, business, anything he could get his hands on. He wasn't just investing money, he was investing time in becoming a smarter investor. So let's be honest for a second. Think about your own weekly ratio. If you spend, say, 10 hours on entertainment, Netflix, video games, whatever, and 0 hours on learning about money, where do you really think you're going to end up? Now, think about this. What if you just shifted 2 of those hours, just 2, from entertainment to learning? Over 10 years, you'd rack up over 1,000 hours. That's enough to become an expert in your own finances. And finally, we get to rule number 7. And this is the master key. It's the secret sauce that makes everything else work. It's also the hardest one because it requires a mindset that goes completely against our modern world of instant gratification. And the power of that patience, it's staggering. Look at this. If you invest $500 a month for 30 years, you end up with around $745,000. That's amazing. But if you just stay patient for one more decade, 40 years total, that number more than doubles to 1.7 million. That last decade alone generates more wealth than the first 3 combined. This is where compounding goes nuclear. John was patient, Michael was not. You see, these aren't just 7 random tips. They're a system. They're like gears in a machine, and they all work together. Paying yourself first gives you the capital to buy assets. Avoiding loss lets that capital compound. A secure home and a stable marriage protect you from financial shocks. And learning helps you do it all better. While patience is the fuel that lets the magic happen. So here they are, one last time. Just take a moment and let these sink in. These 7 simple rules. This is it. This is the difference between finishing rich and finishing broke. It really isn't about how much money you make. It's about the system you follow day in and day out. And this brings us to you, because learning these rules, that's the easy part. The hard part is actually doing them. So my question for you is, which one of these rules are you breaking right now? And more importantly, which one will you commit to starting today? Not tomorrow, today. Because at the end of the day, the objective isn't just to pile up money for the sake of it. The real goal is security, it's freedom, it's peace of mind. Money is simply the tool that helps you build that life. The choice between being a John or a Michael isn't made in one big decision, but in the small, daily disciplines of following the rules that actually work.